started, we're excited to have this 5-series webinar set up with CARC. This has been made possible through the funding we received through Department of Labor and Advanced Education through the Ag Sector Program. These webinars will be recorded and available online after the fact, and I encourage you to ask any questions that you might have throughout the day. You can raise your hand, have an opportunity to talk as well. And with that, I will turn it over to Jennifer to get started.
Thanks so much, Carolyn, and thanks for having me and reaching out to CARC for this series of webinars. So today our focus is going to be on workforce planning for the upcoming season. And for those of you that may not have heard of CARC before, we're the Canadian Agricultural Human Resource Council, a national nonprofit organization that looks at identifying and addressing HR issues in the agriculture sector. And we do a lot of labor market research, both looking at current labor markets as well as forecasting labor supply, or how many workers are going to be available in the future. And we do a lot of work around HR management, developing tools, resources, as well as other research around trends in agriculture, human resources as well. All the work that we do is led by industry stakeholders, and we partner with organizations such as the Nova Scotia Federation of Agriculture to bring together these resources that are provided by our council. As Carolyn said, I'm Jennifer Wright, and I am the Senior HR Advisor and Stakeholder Engagement Specialist. I grew up on my family farm down in southwestern Ontario. We also had a farm equipment dealership, so I grew up in both the primary production side of things as well as the agribusiness side. And I've been living in Ottawa and working in HR for just over 20 years now. And happy to be connected back into my roots, which is agriculture, by working with CARC. And a lot of the work that I've done is really focused on workplace culture, inclusion, diversity, lots of research, program development, and HR policies. So before we get right into planning for the upcoming season, I thought I'd just set the stage a little bit. And I know that you know, this isn't news to you. There's a labor shortage, and it's becoming harder and harder to find enough workers to meet the demand of the work required on the farm. Our data shows that nationally, the current labor gap, or the current gap in the number of jobs to hire for and the number of workers available, is at 63,000. And when we look out another 10 years, that's going to grow to 123,000. That's a lot of people and a lot of work that needs to be done. When we put a dollar value to it, it shows up as producers losing close to $3 billion nationally because of this shortage of workers. It doesn't only impact the bottom line, but it also impacts farmers because without the work still needs to be done, and it impacts the productivity, the output that you're able to have on your farm, and it puts an extra level of stress and workload on those that are working on the farm, including the farm owners. So you'll see there that output per worker has increased 33% in 10 years from 2007 to 2017, and certainly that hasn't changed in 2020 from what we know. When we look at that data a little bit closer and look at the Nova Scotia specific data, you know, the same kind of thing happening within your province that's happening nationally. We're forecasting a loss of around 33 million in 2018 because of that labor shortage. You're doing very well with the turnover rate is the lowest in Canada, so that's fantastic. You're doing a good job at keeping the workers that you do have, but certainly still feeling that shortage and a dependency on the foreign workers to help bridge the gap between what opportunities are there to fill and the number of workers available to fill them. Also, we have recently completed some work looking specifically at the impact of COVID-19 on the labor force in agriculture and the impact that it's had on primary producers, not only in finding enough workers, but in the added stresses that it could have brought to your operation, like more overtime, costs for PPE and things like that. And that research will be coming out in end of March, early April. And so, you know, why is HR management important? It's really, you know, it's the people on the farm that get the work done and create the profitability and the success of your operation. And without the taking care of the people, it can really cost your bottom line. And by having those good HR practices in place, you can become an employer of choice in your community and in the industry. And this becomes even more important when there's a labor shortage and there's more competition for the fewer workers that are there. You also, by having good HR management practices in place, it's really making sure that you're meeting your legislative requirements as well. So reducing your risk on that side and protecting your business and keeping workers safe. And as I alluded to with that, there is a cost to your bottom line when there's a lot of employee turnover. Clearly with the rates overall in your province, it looks like you're doing very well at that and understand that cost. But when that rate of turnover increases, it does have an impact on recruitment, your time, training, you know, getting new workers up to speed, keeping team morale of the workers that are there positive. The reputation of your farm as an employer can have an impact as well if that turnover rate gets high. And at Carc, we've actually developed a cost of turnover calculator to help producers understand what that does mean to your bottom line. And I'm just going to walk through an example of how this works, and the cost of turnover calculator can be found on our website as well as through the AgriHR toolkit. But if we look at this example, and I've just picked some random numbers for the employee salary and the, as you'll see in a minute, the manager's salary. If your departing employee is making a salary of $30,000 a year, their daily salary breaks down with all of the benefits and all that kind of thing in place at around $150 a day. When we look at the separation costs, the manager or the farm owner is the one that is going to put time into managing this process. And so for argument's sake, I've just put a salary in of $50,000 for that person. But if you're looking at the time to manage the process of the person leaving by the manager, it's you know, adds up even with just 5 hours of time towards us of updating files, completing the exit interview, and getting the other severance paperwork together. It can add up to be over $2,000 in this scenario. And then once someone leaves, you still have to put time into replacing them. So again, it's typically the manager or the farm owner that is managing that process. And it takes time. It takes time to get the job ad out there, to get resumes in, to do the interviews, to do the hiring process. And it costs money sometimes for that advertising and the work that goes on behind to get the message out as well. And so you see there that cost can add up pretty quickly. Once you do hire someone new, you still need to train them and you still need to get them up to speed so that they're ready to be productive in your environment. And that's not something that happens overnight. We can't find perfect people that can just drop in and know exactly how the job is done and how you do things in your operation. So again, when you look at those costs, it adds up in this scenario to over $1,500, but you know, depending on your own situation, those numbers may fluctuate a bit. And then of course, as I said, that new employee can't just hit the ground running. They do need time to ramp up and they need time to understand how you do things and get comfortable with processes, and you know, sometimes even go through a whole season with your operation. And so there's lost time and productivity when that is happening because they're not working to their full productivity potential and efficiencies. So again, you see how the costs can add up in that area. And when we add all of these things together, just for one person leaving and being and hiring for that role, you can see in this scenario it costs over $12,000, and depending on the position and the salary or hourly wage that you're paying, these numbers are going to fluctuate, but it does have a big impact on the bottom line. And so with these things in mind, it's very important to invest in your operation. And just as you invest in your equipment and the products that you're using, your inputs, and all of that kind of thing, you also need to be investing in your people and the people side of your business. Because smart business investment equals a smart business and a successful business. And that business investment does need to include your people. Today, we're going to focus more on finding those workers, but you can see that once you find them, you also need to put things in place to keep them and also to continue your success. So we're going to walk through a few steps to keep it kind of simple. There's really 5 key steps to finding workers, and we'll walk through those today. If you're doing these 5 steps, it's really going to help you make a good and lasting hiring decision, and it's going to have a really positive impact on the long-term health of your operation. So the first thing that you really need to do is take some time to do some HR planning and figure out what you need and who you need. And this, is just like you plan for the season. You plan what inputs you need, what supplies you need, where you're going to, what you're going to plant, how much of it, and what you hope to get out at the end of the season. And as you do strategic planning as well for your operation, or business planning for your operation for 3 to 5 years, HR planning is really a component of that. And it is often overlooked, but is, again, extremely important on the success of your business, and a real key point to making sure that you're able to meet the objectives of your business plan by making sure you've planned properly to have the right people in place to do the work. So that first step is really in line with a strategic planning process, and taking a look at what your goals and operational objectives are, and then figuring out the resources that you need to meet those operational objectives. And then you're really going into that next step of workforce analysis where, okay, I know what I need to get done. Do I have the right people in place right now? And if I don't, and who's going to help meet those objectives? Do they have the right skill sets right now to be able to meet the objectives of where we're going? Step 3 is really building on that and saying, okay, there's a gap here. Here's where we're good. Here's where we have the right people and the right skills. There's a gap we need to hire in this area. Maybe it's more of someone of a type of job you already have, or maybe it's looking at bringing in new skills into the workforce. It could also be identifying people that you already have in your operation that you could train to get to where you need to be to help meet those objectives. Step 4 is that strategic development. So making sure you have those good HR practices in place to help fill the skills that you need and to help fill those capacity gaps that you've identified in your gap analysis. And step 5 is that evaluation. So you're really looking at, like any good plan, like your business plan that you already have in place. You don't just want to do an HR plan and say, great, check the box, I'm done. You really need to go back and make sure that that plan's working for you, that it's achieving what the goals are of the plan. And if not, you can tweak it and update it. It really should be a living document once you have it in place. And so the other key thing, obviously, when you figure out who you need and what you need, is to start that recruitment process, and that's going to help with find the right people. And again, there's steps to that recruitment process, which is defining the job, developing the criteria, getting that ad out, deciding what type of recruitment method you're going to use, and how to, go through those job applications and select the right person. And we'll walk through those steps now. So really, you know, with that first step of knowing what you're looking for, before you go, you know, you've done your HR planning, you know what you need. You need to also take the next step of, I know what I need, but I need to put that in a bit more of a formal job description. I need to think about what are the knowledge, skills, and abilities that are needed for the job, and what are things that you could maybe train. Maybe, you know, when you go through this process, you may identify that you don't need to find someone that's worked specifically with your commodity in the past, or someone that's even worked on a farm. Maybe they need to have, you know, certain skills and abilities or traits that you're able to train some of the experience that they might be missing. But going through that process will help you think about that. And there's some examples, you know, teamwork, ability to learn, work ethic. You know, is previous farm experience required, or is that a nice to have? You know, these are the things that you'll think about as you go through developing the job description. And then you need to know where to look. There's lots of recruitment methods out there. Internal is a great way. I mentioned earlier that, you know, as you do your gap analysis, you might identify some people already working for you that might be interested in the current opening that you have, or may be ready to move up and build on the skills and experience they already have with your organization. That's a great way to career path people, or to, you know, show them that there's growth and opportunity within your operation. Employee referrals are also a great source of finding new people. Typically, your good employees are not going to refer someone to come and work with them if they don't believe that that person would be a good fit and bring the right skills. So employee referrals, a great place as a recruitment method. Networking and word of mouth, also a good way to get that word out there. You know, during COVID, we might not be out and about as much as usual. We might not be up at the mill or at the coffee shop as much as we might be, and running into neighbors and colleagues, but there are ways to get that word out through Twitter, through, you know, send a text, and you know, any way that you're connecting with your network, you can use that if you don't see them face to face. Advertising in recruitment agencies as well, depending on the role that you're hiring for, will depend on where you may place your ads, and it may also depend on whether or not you need to spend money at a recruitment agency. But really, all of these methods, you're not just going to pick one. You're going to have a combination that are going to work for you for your recruitment. And in Nova Scotia, here's some good examples of, you know where to look and where to advertise. The Nova Scotia Ag Job Board I put up here. That's a great place to start, and a good place to post your jobs with lots of traffic there for local people. There's other job boards out there as well. There's, you know, the general ones like Indeed, as well as ones that are a bit more ag focused like Ag Careers, but lots of places again to get that job advertisement out there. There's other channels as well that you can look at, the local employment offices, local newspapers, Kijiji, Facebook Marketplace, LinkedIn. Again, depending on the type of job that you're hiring for and the level of job that you're hiring for, these are great things to take a look at. Post-secondary institutions are also a great place. There's lots of post-secondary institutions, colleges, universities that have students looking for seasonal work, for example, or that have co-op programs or internship programs where they're looking to connect with farm employers. And it's good to build a relationship with your local schools and to make sure that they're aware of the opportunities available on your farm. High schools as well. You know, lots of high school students are looking for summer work or seasonal work. They may not be available for you during the week, you know, during planting season, for example, but maybe they're available on the weekends, or maybe you can line them up for the summer season. But another good resource for you as well. Now we know, you have your job description and you know what you're going to do, where you're going to go out and start looking for the right person. But you also need to know how to advertise. And really that's creating that compelling and clear job ad. And you want to make sure in that job ad that you're providing enough detail for applicants, that you're going to attract the right people to apply. But also that you're providing a good picture of what the job's about and what your own operation is about as well. Obviously, we want to strike that balance between creating an exciting job ad and making sure it's realistic to the opportunity, but you do want to ensure that there is some information there. I know I've seen lots of ads, place that are hiring farm laborer and a phone number. No name of the farm, no information about the type of skills or experience you're looking for, no information about your farm or what type of commodity you have, if it's seasonal, if it's full-time. So you may end up with getting a lot of applications that aren't good fits. Taking a little bit of time to make sure you have provide a good picture of what the job's about, what your organization is about, is going to really help better attract the right people to apply to the job. Other tips around creating your job ads, you want to make sure that you are using inclusive language, and that helps show your commitment to diversity, but it also helps ensure that you're not unintentionally deterring people from applying to your firm by using language that might not be as inclusive and show that there's an opportunity for them there as well. So take time to review the language that you have. The Agri-HR Toolkit, which I'll show at the end, has some good examples of ways to ensure that your job ad is inclusive. And here are some examples as well. You want to make sure that, for example, you're using general neutral terms. So, you want to make sure that in your job description, you're not referring to he will, he will, he will. You could just put the worker will do this, the worker will do that, for example. But there's other things that you want to be looking at to ensure that that language is inclusive and that you're attracting everyone to apply for your job. You also want to make sure to provide a job profile, and it's just, it doesn't have to be lengthy, it doesn't have to be in a lot of detail, but a brief description of your farm, what you value, the type of commodity that you have or the type of operation you have, and why your farm is a good place to work. This profile really helps introduce yourself and market your farm as a potential place for workers and for customers, depending on what you are producing. It shows that your farm is a business and a workplace, and it can be a great recruitment tool so that candidates can decide whether or not they see themselves in working at your farm as opposed to maybe another farm. And then when you start looking for employees, you really should be looking at considering people from other sectors. With this labor shortage and the way things are now, we don't have that same pool of labor coming up as the workers come in that may grow up on a farm down the road and be ready to work for you for the summer or for a season before they, or a few seasons before they get into farming on their own. Those people are fewer and farther between, and it's important to, increase the net of people that you're looking for, and ensuring that you're looking at things like transferable skills and experiences that may fit in on your farm or your business. It's also good to consider those employees of the non-traditional groups that may not have applied to work with you before, like newcomers to Canada, retirees, depending on your operation, and persons with disabilities as well. So then how do you select the best candidate? You really need to make sure you've got your job ad out there, you're starting to get resumes in. Now what do? You want to make sure that you have a process in place that is consistent and structured, so that you are providing a way for people to apply that's consistent, and that your interview process, your review process of the resumes, your interview process, and your reference checks are all done in a standardized way. And you can lean on those job requirements that you have set out in your job description as a way to set up the criteria that you're measuring resumes or applications against. And so if you are using formal applications, again, you want to make sure that the questions on the application refer to the job's requirements. Lean on that job description to be able to do that. You also want to make sure, again, that it doesn't include any discriminatory or prohibited questions or gather any of that information. You are bound as an employer by federal and provincial legislation around human rights and the Employment Standards Act. So you want to make sure that you're taking a look at that as you put your application form together. With the interview as well, you want to make sure that you do have a standard set of questions and that you're using those questions consistently with the people that you're interviewing. It really is a good way to compare each candidate you interview equally with the other candidates as well. And you don't want to forget to do the reference check. Doing a reference check is a great way to ensure that the information shared by the candidate is accurate and factual, but it's also a good way to have a conversation with someone that may have worked with them in the past to identify and verify their abilities and skills and identify those areas that they may you may need to provide a little extra support or learning as you bring them on board. It's important as well to make sure that you're taking that step to prepare an offer letter and make sure that in that offer letter you have the information around the terms of employment. I know that it can be easy just to hire someone and say, yep, great, you've got the job, show up Monday, we'll get started. But from a point of view of your legal risk, it's good to have the terms of employment on paper. It also provides the new employee with the reassurance that you run your firm as a business and that you are taking the time to ensure the proper paperwork is in place. When you extend the offer, I will say that when you extend a verbal offer, that's legally binding. So it doesn't just come down to securing people once you do the letter of offer. If you say to someone, extend them a job offer, that is legally binding, and whether or not you have the paperwork in place. So you want to make sure that you're ready to hire someone when you extend that verbal offer. You also want to make sure that you take the time to contact the unsuccessful candidates, and that's just a courtesy. You want to be able to say, thanks so much for your time, thanks for your interest in my operation. We've gone with someone else at this time, but we really appreciate your time and interest. And that will also help make sure you're building that reputation of being a good employer and someone that cares about the people, not only that you hire, but the ones that showed interest in working for you as well. Once you do make that hire, it doesn't stop there. And really, we're going to go into a little bit about onboarding and retention right now, but this is an important thing to ensure that you've gone through this process to make sure you find the right people. Now let's make sure that once they start working for you, that they feel welcomed and they feel valued, and that they're going to want to stay and work in your operation long term. And so really that's that fifth step. Know how to ensure the success of your new hire. And so, HR terms call this onboarding, but this is really just making sure on those first day and first weeks that your new hire is with you, that you're taking time to make the introductions, that they know who's who, that they know who to go to ask questions. They know things like where the lunchroom is and, what time people normally take lunch, when coffee breaks are, how things work. And, you know, that's kind of on the social side of things and making them feel welcomed, but then also making sure you're providing the training, health and safety training that's required, you know, what their job's all about, what's expected of them, where to find things, where manuals are kept, for example, and that will provide some support so they don't feel quite as lost on their first couple of days as well. It will also help ensure that they are moving towards that 100% efficiency and productivity faster because you've taken the time to provide this support up front. And then once you do that as well, you want to make sure that you're checking in and not just leaving them on their own, but checking in, see how they're doing, see if there's anything they need. And those check-ins will be more frequent at the beginning and become less frequent, but still very important throughout their employment. So things to keep in mind during that orientation, you know, depending on who you're hiring, if someone's coming to work on a farm that hasn't necessarily worked in agriculture before, you want to make sure that you're going through safety things around working around equipment, maybe working around animals if that's your operation, but also even if someone has grown up on a farm, the way that you do things in your operation or the type of equipment you have may be very different than where they've grown up or where they worked before. So it's really good to not take things for granted or make assumptions that they know something. It's much better to go through that process and make sure that you're explaining to them how things go on your farm and the safety requirements that are in place on your farm. You also want to make sure that you continue to work at investing in your people and engaging them in their jobs and in your operation as well. You want to make sure that they understand the compensation policies that you have, so they know, for example, if you have a policy where it's a seasonal worker, but if they return next season, maybe they get a $1 raise or that type of thing. Or, you know, if you have something in place where there is bonuses for production or safety, meeting safety requirements, or, you know, these type of things, whatever your compensation policy is, it's good to make sure that it's clear. And you want to also make sure that you're showing your benefits that you have. And these benefits might be health benefits, depending on the size of your operation, but it may be benefits like, you know, we make sure that we provide dinner in a hot meal in the field to all of our workers through the harvest season. You know, it can be anything like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be just benefits related to health benefits. And you also want to make sure that you're working towards creating that positive work environment so that your workers are happy, they feel valued, and they feel they have the confidence to do their work in a good environment. Other things around retention, you know, not always time to do this, but and especially in the current health guidelines, but organizing social events, organizing ways for people to come together and relax and have fun together is a good thing to do. Make sure that you're providing that feedback and recognition to staff so that they know what they're doing well, and you're valuing the time and effort that they're putting into their jobs. When possible, the flexible work hours is a great thing to do as well. Again, depending on the operation, this might not be possible to do on a weekly basis, but maybe it's something that you do more of. You know, you're going to work overtime through planting season, and then we're going to make sure you have Friday afternoons off until things get busy with harvest. Or, you know, maybe it's during our key the real season between April and October, for example. There's not going to be a lot of weekends off, and the days will be a little bit longer, but then, you know, you'll have more flexibility for time off in January when things are quiet. Different things like that you can look at that can provide that flexibility and look at the benefits of how your work environment can meet their needs as well. Investing in training and development is also very important. And again, this doesn't have to be formal training. It doesn't have to be expensive. Taking the time to, for example, do some on-the-job training, share some transfer of knowledge from yourself to them, you know, providing them links to maybe some good videos or webinars is a great way to ensure that you're investing in their development as well. And doing things like, you know, if there's a demonstration day by a farm equipment dealer, that you bring them along and they get that opportunity to see things as well. And you want to ensure that not only do you provide them with coaching and mentorship, but that maybe you provide them with the opportunity to do that too with workers as well. So, you know, you may have a someone that's been your farm worker for a number of years and you've hired someone younger, or sorry, not necessarily younger, but new to your farm. And you can provide the person that's been with you and knows your farm and knows how things are done with the opportunity to mentor and coach the person that's new to the farm. And those investments in retention are going to really pay off. We, you know, earlier in this conversation talked about the cost of turnover, and you can see that by investing in retention, it's not only going to affect your cost of turnover, it's going to create a happier staff and have an impact across your organization or your operation. And so by investing in these type of retention efforts, you're going to have staff that are more effective and more productive. They're also going to be a champion of their work and take pride in the work that they're doing and wanting to make sure it's done well. They're going to be a champion for your business. Again, back to that idea of being an employer of choice and being the place in your community that people want to apply to and they really want to work at. That will help you always have good workers in line and working with your in your operation. And the benefits of training, we talked a little bit about this already, but increasing that productivity, it also supports a safer work environment. It helps with turnover rates because your workers are feeling they're valued and that they're growing and learning in their jobs as well. Everybody wants to, you know, be able to learn and grow and feel like they're valued. So by providing those training opportunities can really have a positive impact. And it really improves that, not just the employee well-being, but their job satisfaction as well. So in the review of the hiring steps, you know, putting that time in to select the right person really does save time and money, reduces the risk to your operation, and lowers your turnover rates. In the end, you end up with happier and more productive workers. The research shows that 80% of turnover is a result of hiring the wrong person. So by taking time from the very start and doing your HR planning, understanding the jobs that you need to hire for and the skills that you and experience that you need to hire for right from the very beginning will help ensure that you avoid hiring that wrong person as well. And then following through each of the steps along the way will improve the quality of your process and will improve the selecting the right person for your organization. I mentioned this a little bit while I was talking as well, but you know, there's a lot of information there and there's a lot of things that you need to do and put in place, but you're not alone. The Canadian Agriculture Human Resource Council has created an AGRA HR toolkit. This toolkit has all the information that you need to do every step of HR management. There's tools and templates in this toolkit as well. There's interview guides, there's reference check templates, there's letter of offer templates, there's job ad and job description templates. There's also links to job descriptions and interview guides specific to jobs and commodities that can really help you build what you need, the content that you need for the job descriptions and the job ads as well. So as a member of the Nova Scotia Federation of Agriculture, and they were very pleased to have them as a partner of ours, we do provide free access to the Agri-HR Toolkit for Nova Scotia Federation of Agriculture members. So you can just go to the link and you click on the button subscribe now. When you come to the point of buy now, you click on that. And then it'll take you to the next screen where you're setting up your account. You put in the discount code, which is NSFA Toolkit. You only need to put that in once, then you will have your free access for 1 year and you will not have to put that in again. So over the year, you'll be able to go back in whenever you need it, whenever you have questions or you're looking for additional information, you'll be able to go in and access that. So that's the end of the formal presentation. I hope that you found some of that information helpful.